Welcome to the Shootin' Show. Stand by for shots fired.
Hello, I'm Johnny Rowland, your host of the Shootin' Show, and welcome again to this week's program. We're out here on the range. It's a beautiful day. You may hear a little wind because it is March and it is windy. We hope it's not too bad. Anyway, we want to thank everyone who's written to us and called us in support of our program, and we want to remind you now, please let those manufacturers and organizations know how important the Shootin' Show is to all of us, because it is expensive doing what we're doing with our 1-hour broadcast every week. We need every bit of help we can get. So, let's begin another Shootin' Show. Now friends, the gun that we opened the program with a few minutes ago was the great Ruger P91 decocker. And I say great because these are really such well-made and ruggedly put together handguns. In the 40 caliber, in fact, this may be my favorite of the Ruger semi-automatic series and centerfire. They make a 9mm, they make the 45 ACP, but this is such a good compromise in the 40 caliber. Now this is a decocking model, and what appears in the same place as a safety is in fact not a safety, it is a decocker. And you'll remember from last week's program we talked about how to decock one of the double action automatics with the safety, such as our Smith & Wesson 411. But this gun's safety levers, in fact the decocking levers, have a different function. This gun will always fire. It will not go into a situation where the trigger cannot be pulled and it won't fire. It does not have a magazine safety, which I personally like. That's just a matter of opinion for you as an individual. But this gun operates very much like a revolver in the sense it is always ready to fire when you pull the trigger. Your safety feature is, of course, the long double action trigger pull, which will be for your first shot. And remember what I said last week, the way that I handle these guns personally, every time, and we know this one's unloaded, every time I start to put the gun down or put it back in my holster, I will check that decocker. I will move it with my thumb, whether it's cocked or not. It's just a safety proceeding that I think is very important and will prevent accidents. This gun is similar in size to our Smith & Wesson 411. I tell you what, it's a hard choice, and I'm glad I don't have to make that choice from the Smith & Wesson 411 to the Ruger P91, because they're just different guns. They're both equally fine semi-automatic pistols. We have shot this gun with all sorts of heavy loadings and light loadings. It has functioned 100% for us. As I said, Rugers are typically going to be very reliable, and we have really enjoyed it. It doesn't have as much recoil as I thought it would have due to its weight. Being certainly, it's not a heavyweight, it's a fairly light gun, but the engineering here, they have engineered out a lot of the recoil somehow or another. Now the P91 holds 11 in the magazine and 1 in the chamber, giving you a total of 12. Again, very comparable to the Smith & Wesson 411. And I'm not going to make any prediction at all on which one of these is the best gun. They're just different, and we have certainly enjoyed shooting both of them. But let's take a look at the P91 in recoil. We're going to be shooting the Winchester Silvertip. This is a 155 grain bullet moving at a little over 1,100 feet per second. So this will be an excellent defensive load, an excellent small game load, and the Winchester Silvertips typically are extremely accurate in most guns. So let's take a look at it shooting. We'll load the gun, put the magazine in the base, be sure it's all the way in, and of course to load the chamber, pull that slide all the way back and let it go. Now then, we're going to decock the gun with the muzzle in a safe direction. That is so important. Even though the safety / decockers do not enable the hammer to hit the firing pin, what we're going to do, we're always going to hold the gun in a safe direction. We're just not going to take chances. Well, let's take a look at it in recoil. All right, friends, we're going to put our finger on the trigger. The first shot will be double action. And remember, that second shot is going to be single action. The trigger's a lot further back. And of course, now we'll put the decocking lever down, we'll decock the gun. Friends, you can tell that wasn't too bad. So let's try our gun on paper and just see what kind of accuracy it's going to give us today. Now friends, I believe this Ruger P91 is going to deserve another segment on our program. In fact, we may even compare accuracy in combat accuracy as well as longer range accuracy with our Smith & Wesson 411. They're both very fine guns. This Ruger has a stainless steel slide. It has an aluminum alloy frame with some sort of very, very durable hard coat on it. And most, I'm sure all the internal parts are made of stainless steel, pretty much non-corrosive all the way through. Now, you know, stainless does not mean maintenance-free. It means lower maintenance than a blued steel gun. You have a finish here. In fact, you know, stainless will in fact rust or it will corrode, so they do need some care. But in a damp environment, or if you're a police officer, you have to work in the rain, or if you're on a hunting trip and you're worried about a finish, well, stainless is definitely an awfully good option to consider. Well, let's shoot our P91, shooting the 180 grain Winchester jacketed hollow points. And we have our paper target out here at about 10 yards, a little over 30 feet. So let's take a look at it on paper, offhand, and let's just see what it'll do this morning under really windy conditions here on the range. And we'll decock it, put it on safe. Now then, let's go up to our target and see what it looks like. Now friends, I tell you what, that's a pretty impressive group offhand. And remember, I'm always saying I'm the average shooter because it's true. I don't have any special abilities, but that's awfully good performance from that particular handgun. We have 4 literally in one hole, and we have the 5th shot a ½ inch away from the large hole. So I would say typical of Ruger handguns. They're normally extremely accurate. Also, Rugers typically get a little more velocity from a given loading than most other handguns. I don't know why. I'm sure there's some engineering reason, and I guess I ought to call them and ask them. But that's a very fine group. Again, that is from the center of this group. It's just a little over 1 inch at about 30 or 35 feet offhand. So that proves the gun certainly, in my hands today, I'm shooting fairly well today, I guess, is extremely accurate and can be useful certainly for defense, for law enforcement, or for small game hunting. That's definitely an option. So friends, you know this gun is going to be accurate, shot slow and accurately, or in fact, if you want to speed up a little bit and shoot, it'll also shoot faster and accurate. Great Ruger P91.
Get ready to order the most exciting videotape ever offered on television. It's the best of guns, guns, guns. 60 minutes of action, excitement, and the most amazing display of firearms available on video. Pistols, rifles, shotguns, and machine guns. See Bob Munden, the fastest gun who ever lived. USPSA pistol competition. The Steel Challenge. U.S. Marine Corps weapons. Machine guns from around the world, and lots of surprises. If you like guns, you love the best of guns, guns, guns. Available only through this special TV offer. Fast draw competition, hand cannon, Soldier of Fortune firepower, how to shoot fast, and lots more like you've never seen it before in this 60-minute action-packed video. Use your credit card to order toll-free now. Call 1-800-942-8273. You'll receive the best of guns, guns, guns for just $29.95 plus $4 shipping. By ordering now, you'll receive this 28-page gun video catalog absolutely free. So call with your credit card right now, 1-800-942-8273, or send check or money order to 7888 Ostro Street, Suite A, San Diego, California, 92111.
Here's a gun you don't see every day. It's the Smith & Wesson Model 637. I'm Jerry Ahern for the Shootin' Show. The Model 637, now just what is that? You know, I was at a Smith & Wesson press briefing a couple of years ago. I think it was out in Las Vegas at the SHOT Show. And there was a kind of a humorous moment in it. Smith & Wesson was introducing a whole bunch of new models, and some of the Smith executives were trying to remember, now, what's the number of this gun? What do you call this one? Because Smith & Wesson, as you may know, they make marvelous, marvelous guns, but they also make some really confusing numbering systems for their guns, unless you really understand how they work. And if the number in front of the gun is a 6, that means it's stainless steel. And in the case of a Model 37, that would be an airweight version of a blue or nickel-plated Chief's Special revolver, the Model 36. Okay? And of course, the famous stainless steel Smith & Wesson J-frame is the Model 60, which looks very, very much like this, and that's all stainless steel. So if this is stainless steel as a number prefix, but it's got a 37 after it, a Model 637, would that be? Yes, it is. It is a gun that has a stainless steel barrel, a stainless steel cylinder, and an alloy frame. Now, this is not a gun that you see every day, as I said a moment ago. And the reason for that is simply that this gun is a limited run special commission gun that was made up for a local Georgia gun dealer, as a matter of fact, who decided that they wanted to have a very, very special gun. And at the end of this segment, you'll see the name and address of the firm if you're interested in finding out about it. A Model 637. This could be a very, very appealing gun, and I'll tell you why. Smith & Wesson has a habit of making what most people would concede to be the finest snub-nose revolvers people make generally. They are inherently accurate, they're reliable, they're compact, and they're lightweight. But some people want a much more lightweight version than an all-steel gun. Consequently, they want to go to the airweight or alloy frame. However, we know that aluminum is not going to rust. The aluminum alloy is not going to rust, but the blued steel parts or nickel-plated steel parts could rust. So actually, this is a very, very sensible combination, putting stainless steel together where needed with aluminum alloy to make a nice lightweight gun that weighs about 1/4 pound less than the 21 ounces of a standard all-steel J-frame of this type with an exposed hammer. Now, of course, this is a 5-shot gun, and because it is an alloy-framed gun, you cannot, you should not, you must not utilize plus P ammunition in the gun because you can do damage to the gun. However, there is a perfectly suitable thing that you can do. You can get the Federal 125 grain Nyclad jacketed hollow point, which is their Chief's Special load. When Smith & Wesson had its own ammunition company, the Nyclad load was designed by Smith & Wesson specifically for firing from their 2-inch barrel J-frames, something that would give effective performance on the target without generating excessive pressures that would destroy the gun. And that is the ideal load. In fact, I would say it's really the only practical load for a gun of this type, whether it's a Model 637 or one of the other airweights. The Model 637 could become a collector's rarity someday, I don't know. But it is a very nice, practical, lightweight gun for a woman to carry in her purse, for a man to carry in an ankle holster, for sticking in a pocket if need be. And it's durable, and of course it's a Smith & Wesson, and these work just great.
Friends, the Shootin' Show will be right back after this 1-minute break for your local cable company or television station. And now, friends, let's take a look at this week's feature from Art Alphin. That is Lieutenant Colonel Art Alphin, retired formerly an instructor at West Point, and of course now he has the great A-Square Company, building some of the finest high-powered rifles and ammunition in the world. Now, Art's going to talk to us about one of the most misunderstood guns that we currently talk about or hear about, and that's the assault rifle. You know, friends, the assault rifle has never been for sale to the general public because an assault rifle, in the true sense of the word, is a selective fire rifle, semi-automatic and also full auto. And you have to have a federal license to own one of the fully automatic guns. So this is something that is so misstated and misunderstood in the press today. So Art's going to tell us what an assault rifle, in fact, really is.
An assault rifle is a selective fire individual weapon. When fired semi-automatic, it is intended to fill the role of the infantryman's battle rifle, and when fired on full automatic, it is intended to do better than the submachine gun. In order to make such a thing work, compromises are necessary. Most assault rifles are chambered for a class of cartridges which falls roughly midway between the pistol cartridges, such as the 9mm Parabellum, that are used in the submachine guns, and the full-powered rifle cartridges, such as the 8mm Mauser, caliber 30, and 7.62 NATO, which are used in rifles and machine guns. The basic idea got its start in the period 1936 to 38, when the Germans conducted experiments with scaled-down sporting rifle cartridges. Concepts for use of these cartridges proceeded slowly. By 1942, however, the Germans were confronted with virtual human wave attacks on the Eastern Front. Their shortage of manpower was such that frontages of 1,000 yards for a squad were not unusual. This means that an individual rifleman would have to cover a front of 80 to 100 yards, armed only with his bolt-action rifle. His nearest fire support would be the MG-34 in his squad, which might well be 500 or 600 yards away. These realities and other demands gave impetus to a German search for a greater volume of fire on the part of the individual soldier. To make a long story short, the Germans designed a selective fire individual weapon which was chambered for their reduced power cartridge from the 1930s. They named the weapon Sturmgewehr, literally translated assault rifle. The assault rifle was and is intended to give the individual soldier a selective fire capability. The hope is that when firing semi-automatic, he can fire as a rifleman, and when firing full automatic, he will at least outrange and otherwise do better than a submachine gun. Our purpose here is not to talk about the history of the assault rifle. You have watched a number of these weapons tapes and should have assimilated a historically based methodology for the evaluation of the strengths and weaknesses of any weapon and its employment in light of these strengths and weaknesses. Consequently, we will show 2 assault rifles and 1 main battle rifle and then leave you with some questions. The first weapon you will see is the AK-47. It is the preferred weapon of the Soviet bloc, and it is believed that something in excess of 40 million have been made. It is chambered for the 7.62 by 39 Russian short cartridge. This cartridge fires a 123 grain bullet at approximately 2,400 feet per second. In rough terms, this gives it approximately 60% of the energy and effect of the 7.62 NATO at the muzzle. Due to the lighter bullet's poor ballistic coefficient, the 7.62 by 39 Russian short suffers severe degradation due to air resistance. In exchange for all this, it is selective fire. The second rifle you will see is the U.S. M16A1. It is chambered for the 5.56 by 45 millimeter cartridge, firing a 55 grain bullet at 3120 feet per second. This gives it a bit less than 50% of the energy of the 7.62 NATO at the muzzle, and due to its extremely poor ballistic coefficient, this percentage decreases still further due to air resistance. It does have some greater effect than its numbers would indicate due to its muzzle velocity being over the threshold of 3,000 feet per second. However, since the ballistic coefficient is so poor and the velocity decays rapidly, this effect is all but gone by the time the bullet gets 80 or 90 yards downrange. In exchange for this, however, the recoil impulse from the 5.56 millimeter cartridge is less than that of the 7.62 NATO. The third weapon you will see is the M14 rifle chambered for the 7.62 by 51 NATO cartridge. This cartridge fires a 150 grain bullet at 2750 feet per second. It is the equivalent of the full-powered rifle rounds which you have seen from the Boer War through World War II. The recoil from this cartridge is heavy enough so that full automatic fire from a 10-pound weapon is a virtual impossibility. Each of these weapons will engage the same targets in sequence. First will be 3 pop-up targets at 75 yards, followed by an area suppression target at 280. Then will come 2 pop-up targets at 330 yards, and for the M14 only, a single stationary target at 680 yards. Let's take a look. couple of things are readily evident from the tape. First, the M14 rifle is certainly capable of delivering accurate and effective fire to ranges far beyond what the other two are capable of. At 680 yards, the M14 scored 11 hits out of 16 rounds. Secondly, though the AK-47 and the M16A1 can be fired full automatic, it would appear that there is difficulty in controlling the automatic fire. In all cases, the bursts of fire defined a fairly large beaten zone. A more stable position and a shooting sling, which neither weapon is equipped with, might help, but the beaten zone from full automatic bursts would still be very large. On the chart, the bolt action, Garand, and M14 all have roughly the same combat range. The AK-47 and M16A1 suffer a disadvantage here. I might add that the 400 yards for the M16 adjust sight range assumes a trained rifleman and a still day. The M16A1 does not have sights adjustable for range, and it requires Kentucky windage. Further, the ballistic coefficient of the bullet is so poor that given a crosswind, the M16 bullet blows severely and erratically, and a hit at 400 yards in a wind is quite an iffy thing. The volume of fire has obviously increased from the bolt action to the Garand to the 40 rounds per minute of the M14. With full automatic bursts, the AK-47 and M16A1 are up to 60 rounds per minute. The M14's only advantage over the Garand is its 20-round detachable box magazine, which reduces time lost from reloading the weapon, and its hook butt plate, which tends to keep the weapon stable on the shoulder. However, 40 rounds per minute certainly pushes what the trained rifleman can do. If the rifleman hit with every round and had to shift to a new target after every shot, he would not be able to get 40 rounds per minute. When firing suppression, 40 rounds per minute is feasible and limited only by heat buildup. We show both the M16A1 and AK-47 at 60 rounds per minute. For short periods of time, say 3 to 4 minutes, they can be fired on full automatic at much higher volumes of fire. However, this may not be controllable fire. Further, the AK-47 and M16 fire from the closed bolt and have relatively little mass in the barrel. They heat up badly, and this limits the sustained volume of fire. The follow-on weapon to the M16A1, the M16A2, will have roughly the same volume of fire, but an improved combat range due to its heavier bullet and faster twist. The Soviet follow-on weapon, the AK-74, will likewise have the same sustained volume, but will actually suffer a degradation in combat range due to the light 5.45 millimeter cartridge. With your new M16A2, you will have parity with the AK-47 or be slightly superior to the AK-74. There are basically two schools of thought concerning the assault rifle. One school is that the assault rifle is neither fish nor fowl. The cartridges for the assault rifle give up so much in power that they do not qualify for effective long-range rifle fire. On the other hand, they still have enough recoil so that the controlled, accurate bursts of the submachine gun are non-existent. The opposing school of thought holds that the assault rifle is the optimum blend of all weapons characteristics. The average rifleman cannot hit anything beyond 400 yards or will not be able to see anything beyond 400 yards, and therefore there is no reason to give him a rifle which will shoot beyond 400 yards. In exchange for this acknowledgement of reality, full automatic capability is more than worthwhile. What do you think? You have seen many weapons in these tapes. You have seen examples of leaders who tailored their organization and tactical plan to take advantage of the strengths of their weapons and shield themselves from the weaknesses. What are the strengths and weaknesses of an assault rifle? If the AK-47 and M16A2 have parity, and yet the enemy armed with the AK-47 outnumbers you greatly, under what conditions will you join battle? What will you do to give yourself the winning edge? Does the edge lie in training and morale? If so, does that tend to undercut the idea that the soldier will not be able to shoot past 400 yards? At one time, the U.S. Army could certainly do so. Perhaps the winning edge lies not within the rifle, but in the other weapons that are present, such as artillery, or tanks, or something else. If so, then what does the infantry do? If the M16A2 has parity with the AK-47 in both combat range and volume of fire, then any engagement within M16 range is by definition decisive. How much of a winning edge must you have to accept decisive engagement with a numerically superior enemy? When you ask that question, then ask yourself what Daniel Morgan, or Custer, or Edward III, or Robert E. Lee would have answered. The question is obviously quite complex and goes far beyond a consideration of the rifles alone. It must encompass not only weapons, but the training of the individual soldier and even the society from which he comes. The point is that throughout history, no weapon has ever done everything. Every weapon has a unique set of advantages and disadvantages. You must take advantage of the strengths and shield yourself from the weaknesses. There are adequate historical examples to guide you. Regardless of the results of your analysis concerning the assault rifle, I would urge you to carefully consider the questions. In watching these tapes, you have received a good background in the history of weapons, their characteristics, and their effect on the battlefield. Whatever you do, ensure that you have the winning edge. Battle is not conducted on Queensberry rules. Whenever lives are at stake, only a fool or a desperate man will fight on even odds. You must ensure that you have the winning edge.
Now, friends, realize that Art's original video here was done for a group of soldiers at West Point, but he raised an interesting point. Our winning edge, or our chief weapon in our society, is in fact the voting booth. And what we've done is we've let a lot of politicians get through the gates there and let them get in charge who really don't have our interests at heart. So this is something that all of us need to realize, and we need to support our shooting organizations. And trust me on this one, you need to support the Shootin' Show, because we're trying to get our message out all over America. For more information on the fine A-Square products, write to them at A-Square 1 Industrial Park, Bedford, Kentucky. That zip code is 40006, and their phone number is area 502-255-7456. The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or television station.
Now, friends, I'm holding a little gun today. I say little gun, it's not very small, it's a large gun. In fact, by most standards, it's one of the most useful handguns that I can think of. It's a Smith & Wesson Model 617 in .22 long rifle chambering. Now, it has a swing-out cylinder like other Smith revolvers, and this particular gun holds 6 in the chamber. Now, I understand they're working on the good people at Smith & Wesson, that is, are working on a 10-shot model, 9 or 10 shots, which I think will be a lot of fun when it gets out. But these guns are so accurate and so easy to shoot so well. And one of the neat things about having the 617, this is on a K-frame, which is actually on a 38/357 frame, and it has a heavy barrel much like the 686 and 357 Magnum chambering. And I tell you what, if some days you may not have enough loaded ammunition for your 357 or 38 special, you can take the same size essentially and weight gun and go out and shoot the 22 long rifle and gain some target practice very inexpensively with a similar size package to your heavier caliber gun, if in fact you have one of these. And heck, they're fun guns even if you don't have a larger 357 Magnum. But this little gun is extremely accurate. It has adjustable sights. It has a target front sight also. It has very pretty grooved grips on the gun. They're made out of some fancy hardwood, and it's just as neat a package and as much fun as can be. You know, there is a certain pleasure that's gotten even from someone like myself that shoots all kinds of guns. I enjoy every once in a while just going out and plinking or shooting tin cans or plastic bottles or water jugs wherever, and they're such great and fun little guns to do that with. It's also an excellent gun to start a new shooter off with on teaching them the principle of trigger control and how the gun works in gun safety. They're excellent for children and for women. Now friends, we're going to be shooting our 617 for some time, but let me tell you another option in stainless steel that Smith & Wesson makes, and this is the 2206. It's in all stainless steel. Now this gun comes in several different lengths and 2 or 3 different combinations. They make one that's blued steel with an aluminum frame, or stainless with an aluminum frame. This one is the stainless steel frame and slide. It's all stainless with the exception of the grips and the sights, which looks to be blued steel. Now this gun holds 12 in the magazine, and it's just about as accurate as you can hold. It'll go into 2.5 inches for 5 shots at 25 yards. Certainly more than accurate enough. And to tell you the truth, we haven't tried enough ammunition through it. I suspect that this little gun will probably go into 1.5 inches once I work with it for a while and find the type or brand of bullet it likes. It is certainly accurate enough for small game hunting, and if you like semi-automatic pistols, well, this is a good alternative. It seems to be very reliable with most types of ammunition we've tried in it, and it's just a lot of fun to shoot. So let's take a look at both of these guns in action. Now then friends, I loaded the gun. I put in 6 22 long rifle cartridges. They're CCI mini mags in fact. So let's shoot the gun, and as I said a moment ago, we're here about 35 or 40 feet away from our paper targets, and they are certainly more than accurate enough to take a snake's head off it. And those of you who might be watching our show over the evening meal, excuse me, they're certainly accurate enough to defend yourself against the snake at certainly this range or even further if you practice with the gun some. So let's just see what the target looks like from about 40 feet here. Now then friends, let's take a look at our target, and you can see that all 6 shots are in this tiny area here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In fact, all the holes are touching. That's about a 1-inch group at nearly 15 yards. Like I said, certainly accurate enough for small game hunting. In fact, if you scope that gun with a heavy barrel like that, it might be scary what it would do out at 50 yards, but that is excellent accuracy. And again, as I've said many times on the show before, I'm an average shooter with a little practice. So actually that's not a bad group from so easily done at a pretty good little distance. Now then friends, on our 2206, let's take a look at it on the target. We have a manual safety, which is in the same position as the 1911, in fact the same location, which works well. And of course here is our slide release next to it. is very easy to manipulate, and the top of the slide moves there, in fact the back and the top. And what makes this gun a little different, and we know it is unloaded, we're going to double and triple check, we don't have a magazine in, the barrel is considerably below the front sight on these guns. I'll tell you what though, it works well for Smith & Wesson. The gun function is great, so it has a good trigger pull. Let's take a look at, again, nearly 15 yards here on our target there on the right, and let's see what kind of group it gets for 5 shots. And we'll apply our safety. Put the gun down. Now let's take a look and see what our group looks like. All right, friends, our 2206 put on a pretty good little show there, if I can keep from kicking the target here. It went into about 3/4 of an inch, and this 2206 has fixed sights. They're available with adjustable sights, but that's not a bad group. In fact, that's a little less than 3/4 of an inch. Certainly, small game hunting accuracy for what we're doing. Just excellent performance. I would think that our 617 is probably going to be at least as accurate as our 2206, but that's very fine performance. You could change brands of bullets and the situation might be reversed from, a little better than an inch on the 617, but that's a pretty outstanding group for offhand shooting. We're going to try this at a little further on a later date and just see what the gun will do at 25 and 50 yards, I think. That's most pleasing. So we have two great 22 long rifle guns from Smith & Wesson, the semi-automatic 2206 and the 617 revolver. Both of them are excellent values for what you get for your money, and they're lifetime guns. They're made so well, they look to be so durable, and believe me, you can't go wrong on either one.
And now, friends, let's hear from Jerry Ahern telling us about one of his holsters.
Here's what I meant about, as I call it, perhaps shouldn't, a crotch holster. This is the Ahern Down and Dirty, size large. And as you may or may not know, we have our own holster company making Ahern Tri-Speed holsters. And this is one of our latest products. And this is what I like to call a crotch holster, and probably shouldn't. But it's a holster that's designed to be worn inside your pants, deep inside. It can be worn down inside the sleeve of a jacket. It can be worn suspended in a pocket. It can be worn in a variety of ways, and we provide it with two different attachments. This one simulates a belt loop on your trousers, so that you can just let this hang down inside your pants. And the other one, which I think is really the neatest way, is with this alligator clip. It's just like you'd have on a child's mittens, or you might have on a pair of suspenders, and with this clip you have the ability to put the gun virtually anywhere. And the holster is designed to be ambidextrous, and it works great with the C-Camp, which is one of the reasons we made it that way, because I like to carry the C-Camp a lot. And you simply put the gun in the holster, close the security strap. If you wish to turn it around for other handed use, put it in the holster, close the security strap, and the gun hangs right where you put it. And you don't even have to remove the clip or remove the belt loop. You can just simply remove the holster by use of the Fastex buckle. This is a really neat way to carry the C-Camp DA32, if I do say so myself.
Now, friends, for information on the entire line of Ahern holsters, you can write to them at Ahern Enterprises Incorporated, Post Office Box 186, Commerce, Georgia. That zip code is 30529. For Visa and MasterCard orders only, call 1-800-285-1245. The Shootin' Show will be right back after this 1-minute break for your local cable company or television station. Now, friends, for the absolute best in monthly shooting magazines, turn to Shooting Times magazine. They have all sorts of excellent features on handguns, rifles, shotguns, and black powder by some of your favorite gun writers, such as Dick Metcalf and Rick Jameson and Bill Jordan, just to name a few. Each month you'll find interesting articles on guns, shooting, reloading, and new products in the firearms industry, along with information on pending legislation of interest to all gun owners. For subscription information, call 1-800-727-4353. Shooting Times, the best there is. All right, friends, here we are at our reloading segment again for today. And what we're going to do, we're going to load some ammunition on the Dillon 550 press, and we're going to go through several stages and show you how you start out. You know, it's easy once the press is in place and you've got your powder in the measure, you got the primers in the tube, but it's easy once you get started. But we're going to show you the procedure that I use for starting to load. Okay, friends, I have just dumped some primers out of the little primer tray, the little package they come in, into a primer flip tray. And this one's made by Lee Precision, and the primers will fall into the little tray here. Some of them will be down, some will be up. We need all of them with the bottom facing up. So the way this works, you just give them just a little turn from back and forth, and in fact it will turn, do the little ridges in the bottom of the flip tray there, it will turn all of them the way we need them. Alright, friends, we're going to come back to our primers in just a moment. The next thing we're going to do, I'm loading 45 ACP. I'm going to take some Accurate number 5 powder, which is a very fine powder. Number 5 is awfully good in the 45 caliber. So what I'm going to do, and you have to be extremely careful, I think it goes without saying, absolutely no smoking anywhere near. When we're handling gunpowder, you don't want anybody around you or close to you smoking, because as we've said before, powder really doesn't detonate. It's not like dynamite, but it burns at a very rapid pace. And I don't know if you'd be able to tell the difference. If you burned or set a pound of gunpowder on fire, I don't know if you'd be able to tell the difference in it and dynamite in the final effect. So this is something we're very, very careful about. I don't do this anywhere near an open flame if you're indoors and it's real cold. You don't want to do this anywhere around an open flame heater, anything like that, or a fireplace, because there's just no sense in taking chances. So out here in my reloading shop, what I have is an electric heater, and it's way back over there, firmly out of the way, in case I happen to spill some powder or something like that. And I do want to stress, we need to keep our loading bench relatively clean. I have a little shop vacuum that I use out here. You want to keep down the dust and any spilled powder, any residue, anything like that. We want to keep our reloading bench clean. It's very important. So let's take our lid off our powder container, and we'll take the lid off the measure, and we're going to pour in the Accurate number 5 gunpowder. And personally, I always like to have the powder measure at least half full, because that way I can keep consistent pressures or gravity weight on the powder measure. We'll put our cap back in place, and of course then we'll put the top back on our box of Accurate powder. Okay, and we're going to put this over here out of the way, away from our loader. Now then, we're going to take a cleaned case, and we're going to use one that's already been fired. What we're going to do is we're going to adjust our powder measure, and it's very simple. And on the Dillon press, you can take out one of the little locator tabs, which is a little brass tab that goes in the sides of the ram here, of the shell plate. All right, and the next thing we're going to do, we're going to run about 10 charges of powder through the powder measure, and we're going to do it in our cleaned case. Now this case has already been fired, but it has been cleaned, so we're not going to contaminate our powder. But what we're going to do is we're going to run it through like so, and let the powder measure work. All right, and we're going to pour the powder back in the top of the powder measure. We're going to do this 10 times, and the reason is you want the powder to adjust its flow to
to get rid of any excess, any dust or anything that might be in the measure. So we're going to run about 10 charges through it before we start loading. And this is real important because it lets the working parts of the powder measure adjust to each other, because it's so important that we get consistency in our loads. Now these powder measures are so accurate, they will typically run within 1/10 of a grain of powder. And we're not talking about just individual little tiny grains of powder, we're talking about the measurement grain. All right, friends, a grain of powder, not talking about the little granules now, we're talking about a grain, is 1/7,000th of a pound. It takes 7,000 grains in measurement to make a pound. So that's what we're concerned with, and the accuracy of these scales or these powder measures is really good to get to 1/10 of a grain of powder. So this is so important. We're going to run about 10 or so charges of powder through the measure and through the charging die, so we'll be sure to have it consistently so our ammunition can be consistent. Now then, friends, I'm looking in an Accurate Arms powder manual, a loading guide using Accurate Arms powder, because that's what we're using today. We're using Accurate number 5. We'll put the lid back on our powder measure here. So I'm choosing a load of 7.8 grains of Accurate number 5, but behind a 230 grain full metal jacket 45 caliber bullet. Looking in the manual here, I can see that 7.8 grains behind the 230 grain bullet is going to give me approximately 800 or so feet per second. That's what I'm looking at for today, which is a real nice practice load. It'll be good in the 45 semi-automatic revolver, and I say semi-automatic revolver, the revolver that takes the semi-automatic pistol cartridge, and also in our Colt 45 ACP. So the next thing we're going to do, because we already have our powder measure set, and we need now to set the proper depth for the bullet. We're going to do that in just a moment. We're going to take one primer and be very careful. And remember, when we handle primers, it's real important to have your hands completely dry and free from anything that might contaminate the priming compound in the primer. All right, friends, we're going to put our primer with the open face up in our primer tube here, and put our little plastic follower in the primer tube. We've got one primer in the machine because that's all we're going to use for just a moment. One primer. Okay, we're going to take our cleaned and empty fired case. We're going to insert it in station 1. We're going to bring the press up, bring the handle down, resize the case, punch out the primer, and our primer pickup here has brought one, and when you press the lever all the way forward, it will properly seat the primer. And then the next thing we're going to do, we're going to move our new case with a fresh primer in it, our resized case, I said new, and we're going to get our powder charge right here. Now then, friends, the reason we put one primer in here is because we only want to play with one case here for just a moment. It's real important because we're going to set our bullet seating depth. Now then, we have a primed and charged with gunpowder case. We're going to turn the shell plate around. One reason I like the Dillon machine, the 550, that you have to turn the shell plate with your fingers is because if you have, say, a 9mm case that is a pretty intense cartridge, or a 40 that you have a lot of powder up near the top of the case mouth, you don't spill any. Some of the automatic indexing machines will sometimes, in a rapid movement, will spill a little bit of powder out the top of the case. So when you can turn the shell plate with your fingers, it gives you a lot more freedom and discretion on what you want to do, whether you want to go forward or backwards with the case, whichever. Anyway, now then, we've got our case mouth belled, a charged case with a fresh primer in it. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to seat our bullet. We'll place our bullet in the belled case mouth over the powder charge. And what we're going to do, and the reason we put in that one primer is because we don't have to worry about when we run the
bring the handle down on the machine, we don't worry about picking up another primer from the tube. Like I said, we want to get one bullet exactly right, and once we get our adjustments is exactly right for one bullet, then the rest of them will be right. So we're going to get our first one first. First things first, whatever. All right, we're going to bring the round up, and we're going to start the bullet in the case. Now I've already got enough of the die there to start the bullet. Now then, we're going to take our vernier caliper, and we'll take our locator tab out so we can remove. And we're going to look in the loading manual and see what the proper depth is. And we're far too long here, we're going to have to bring it down some more. Now friends, we've run out of time on today's reloading segment, and if you think I'm proceeding at a snail's pace, well, I am, because safety in reloading is so important, and we're going to take things slow so you can have a basic understanding about how the reloader works and about what goes into loaded ammunition. So bear with me on this. We're just going to take all the time we need to explain some of the finer points in reloading. But for information on Dillon Precision products, you can write to them out at 7442 East Bucyrus Drive in Scottsdale, Arizona. That zip code is 85260, or give them a call at 1-800-421-7632. I want to remind you now, you can buy a Dillon reloading press. They have an installment plan, so give them a call out there. There's some very fine people, and they make a great product. Now, friends, we want to remind you about Shotgun News, the trading post for anything that shoots. Published 3 times monthly with thousands of firearms bargains. Shotgun News, Post Office Box 669, Hastings, Nebraska. That zip code is 68902. Their phone number is area 402-463-4589. For MasterCard or Visa subscriptions only, call them at 1-800-345-6923. And friends, we sure want to remind you about Clark Custom Guns in Keithville, Louisiana. Champion guns made by champion shooters. Clark Custom Guns Incorporated, Post Office Box 530, Keithville, Louisiana. That zip is 71047, or you can give them a call at area 318-925-0836. Friends, we hope you've enjoyed this week's program, and we look forward to seeing you again next week on The Shootin' Show.